What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? We've got some Amalfi action provided today by ASF Destroyer. Wonderful game right here. Very, very well played. This is going to be playing in the background, but the video for today is pretty much covering the state of World of Warships right now. And there's two metrics I want to cover, two very important things. First, I want to cover the overall players, and then I also want to cover just the climate right now and how that climate feels. And I think taken together, those are two very, very important things. However, they are two totally different things, and I need to caveat that, just because one is doing good, it doesn't mean the other is doing good, vice versa. And it's funny how that works. I'm going to go into that here in a little bit as well. As Mr. Destroyer gets started off here. He's taking a little bit of damage, but he's got a long way to go. There's a lot of time left in the round, and he's going to do perfectly fine. He really is. So the first thing we're going to cover is just right now the overall players we have in World of Warships and how that's kind of going right now. And I know a lot of you are watching this video and you're probably thinking the player base is in decline. Everybody's always like that, Everybody's like, oh, the game's dying, the game's going to die out. And, I've heard this since 2015. I've heard it since the very beginning of this game. Something will happen, players get angry, and automatically they say, hey, this game is dead. It's dying. People are leaving. Whatever. If you go to take a look at the online stats for the game, the actual players that have been playing, that is the furthest from the truth possible. And talking about North America right now, and I've covered this before, but North America continues to be growing its player base. It's steadily increased since October 15th, and even to this day, it's gaining in average daily players, average logins, everything else. And this is kind of coming back from a low point when the carriers came out, the rework, but even that was a minor blip in things. That was not that major. I mean, since then, we've had peaks in 2020 higher than at any other point, capping at about 19.5 thousand people logging in for the day. And yeah, we've kind of rolled back a little bit from that point, but it's still those ebbs and flows that you see every single year. At this point, we're averaging right around 15,000, which is still, I would say, probably on par with what it was last year, right around this time frame. But by no stretch of imagination is this game unhealthy in North America. If anything, it is doing very, very well, and it is still gaining players for a 5-year-old game. And, things like collaborations with Verizon help. I mean, Wargaming just did Virtual Fleet Week with Verizon. I was part of that. I mean, that's a huge partnership right there. I mean, Verizon is gigantic. Huge. So there's a lot of life left in Wargaming, and North America is doing very, very strong right now. So, don't believe the stuff you're hearing online and elsewhere. Despite hiccups that Wargaming has every now and then, and despite loud voices saying that the game's dying or, it's not fun, players are leaving, the actual stats show otherwise. So that's worth noting. And I've said before, NA does it right. I mean, they've got a great crew, Sale, and just the whole team. They've done a really, really good job and always have. I mean, I'm very proud of North America. And, I really can't speak to the other regions because I'm just not as familiar with them. But here in North America, they've got a great team. They reach out to the players, and I think they've just done a really good job. So conversely, if we take a look at Russia, and here's where things are a little different. I wouldn't say that Russia is hurting at all. They're definitely not hurting. Their player base is still robust. Their player base is still strong, but it's definitely not what it used to be. And I'm not saying that it's cratering, but they're actually closer to North America numbers now, where in the very beginning, they're averaging at sometimes 45,000 logins per day. Now they're down to about anywhere in between 21 and 18,000, and that's even down from earlier this year when they're at about 24,000 for the highs, and the lows only around 18,000. So Russia has definitely, shed a little bit of that player base, and I really don't know why. And it's possible that a lot of those players were players that used to play World of Tanks, and they came over to World of Warships for a little while. They wanted to test the game out, see how it was. They enjoyed it for a little bit, and then eventually they just said, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm just gonna go on and head back to World of Tanks. So moving on to the EU, which is probably one of the largest sources of players for World of Warships, they've been steady too. I mean, obviously, when the game first came out, they had a high of, just like Russia, about 45,000 people. But even this year, there has been some growth. It's been modest. It hasn't been significant growth, but there is still growth right there. And this is coming after about 2 or 3 years where things have been kind of stagnant. And in some cases, 2019, the average amount of players decreased. But now there has been growth since September of 2019, going up to the point where we are right now. They have gained. So high points for the year, they were almost at 37,000. They're down a little bit from that right now. But again, there has still been positive growth in the player base, and that is a great thing for a 5-year-old game. I mean, you've got 40,000 people logging in on some days. You just don't see that in many games anymore. Now, lastly, we're going to take a look at Asia, and Asia's really the only other region aside from Russia that has had steady player loss. But it's not extremely significant. It's not like it's just completely dropped off, but it's more of a gentle downward slope, averaging close to 24,000, and now it's more like 16 to 18,000. And it has been a steady decrease, whereas the other regions, or at least North America and Europe, you can definitely see an uptick. In Asia, you can definitely see things trending downwards. But once again, when you factor in the amount for all 4 regions put together, I mean, the numbers are still phenomenal. The numbers are still really, really good for a 5-year-old game. And again, just to clarify, once again, North America and Europe have gained this year. And that goes against conventional wisdom, because if you listen to the scuttlebutt and the word on the street and other players, they're going to tell you right now that things are going horrible with the game. The aircraft carriers still suck. Why would Wargaming have done this? It's killing the game, but the statistics are showing the exact opposite right now. Obviously, they're not killing the game, and obviously the vocal are probably the few, and that's how it is. Maybe a couple percent of the players that play this game actually participate in forums and everywhere else, and that's where you're going to hear the majority of all the negative aspects of the game. So that is one thing that you really just need to keep in mind. The game is healthy right now. It's very healthy. And if you look at the amount of stuff coming out, that shows you that the game is healthy as well. I mean, Wargaming has not slowed down in what they are putting out. I mean, almost to the point that it's too much, in my opinion. We've had too many premiums, too many ship lines, too much diversity, and it's getting harder. That rock, paper, scissors aspect has just got drowned. But I don't want to sound like that's a bad thing, because it's really not a bad thing. 5 years in and we're still pumping out ships. That is something to be happy about. That's something to be really happy about. And it's just a testament to how well the game is actually doing, despite what some people think. So, World of Warships, on the players and just the content, doing absolutely great. I mean, I don't think there's... The game's healthy. I can't say much more than that. Now, the overall atmosphere, now that's something completely different, player satisfaction. And, a lot of people will play a game even if they're not happy. And I think that's the case with World of Warships. But, again, it's really hard to tell if these are just the very vocal players or not. But even for myself, I do feel the atmosphere has changed a little bit. There might be more players or more players logging in, but I do feel that the community, I don't want to say has gone negative, but there is a slightly different feel right now. And, I don't think it's the community's fault, and I think some of what Wargaming has done, it kind of weighs down on them and the way they play and just the overall satisfaction. But, I don't want to blame Wargaming either. That would be unfair, because they're just doing what they can right now to pump out more ships and get that revenue to get more ships out. But, yes, some of the things that have happened have caused a little angst in the community. And when you take the recent crates, the Santa crates, into account, whether it was deliberate or not, that affects the player base. And while right now we don't know if anything specific has happened with the amount of players actually playing, and I suspect that it won't. I suspect players are still going to play. They're just going to be a lot more wary on purchasing loot crates or Santa crates or whatever you want to call them. They're going to be a little more wary in the future, but I don't think it's going to hurt the overall player base. That's just one of those things that just makes things a little more sour in the community. It adds to that, negativity and players playing the game but not really enjoying playing the game, which I've honestly never understood why some players still play the game if they don't like the game. But, that exists in every game, not just World of Warships. It exists everywhere. So, that is not something specifically seen in this game alone. It happens in every game. Every game you've got salty players that just, oh, I'm going to uninstall. All right, well, go ahead and do it. You know what? Put your money where your mouth is. If you say you're going to leave the game, go and install it. And while you're at it, stop going to the forums and being a little biatch. Because no one there wants to hear it, If you've installed the game, why are you still talking about it? Move on. Seriously. But, again, I'm not saying that's our community. I'm saying that's every game out there. You get that in every single game. You get the players that say they're going to delete it, and of course they're not going to delete it. They keep playing it. They still love the game, and for whatever reason, they just have to be that way. So, yeah, but the game, honestly, it's interesting because this year I haven't played it more as a diehard, player. With the twins that have just come in, now 9 months old, I've played more for fun than anything else. And by playing more for fun, I mean playing in divisions with two of my very good Army buddies, and just going out to have a good time when we stream on Thursdays. And for that, I've had a lot of satisfaction out of the game, and I've enjoyed it a lot still, and I still enjoy the community, and our interactions with the community have been great. So, I know some people are feeling this negative aura, and, I think it's more on the forums and everywhere else and the different various social media. But in-game, I don't really notice it. I don't notice it at all. So, and it's probably the same for a lot of players as well. But for me, the game's still a lot of fun. I would say, though, it's probably a little less fun for new players right now, and especially those that don't have divisions they can get into. At this point, I think the game is a lot more fun when you have players you can play with. And, again, that's the same with every other game as well. But, I mean, there's not much more I can ask for right now other than more maps and new game modes. I mean, we're getting tons of ships. Granted, they might not be the ships I want. We're getting different types of things. They're redoing the captain's skills for better or for worse. So, I mean, Wargaming is still very much investing in this game. They're still very much providing for this game. And I think the numbers, the player numbers of this game prove that. I mean, if things were as bad as some people think they are, the numbers wouldn't be rising. The average players in North America and Europe, they would be doing the exact opposite. But again, that's just a bunch of players that are salty and, you know, they're kind of hoping the game fails because somehow it makes them right. But I'm telling you right now, that's not what's happening. The exact opposite is happening. The game is still growing, though the growth has slowed a little bit, but there's still a slight upward trend in some of the regions. So, the state of the game right now, in December of 2020, at the end of 2020, the game's healthy. The game's very healthy. The community is healthy. You know, and even negative interaction on social media is still interaction. It means that people care for the most part. So, the community's healthy, the game's healthy. This game's not going anywhere for a while. I mean, Wargaming would have to royally screw up for that to happen, and I just don't see that happening. You know, too many players have invested too much time in this game, and they love the game, for things to just drop off. And then new players are getting drawn in because Wargaming is doing things with partners like Verizon and everything else. So, there you have it right there. I mean, the game is healthy. The state of the game is good. Despite what you might hear or what people might think, or their hatred for aircraft carriers, which just as many people like as people hate. I mean, a lot of the new players like aircraft carriers. You just gotta get over it at this point because they're not going to change. Like I said earlier, you know, you either play it and you deal with it or just uninstall and play something else. But anyhow, ASF Destroyer had a phenomenal game. 3,000 base XP and a very close game and win here. Thank you for the video. And I want to know your thoughts on how things are going in the community right now. Please let me know in the comments. Take it easy, everyone. Zoop out.